Donal, it is so great to have you here and great to have everyone who's joined us as well for this conversation. How are you today?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks a million for having me, Annika. I really appreciate it. Listen, it's a beautiful day outside. I had a beautiful sea swim earlier on, and I'm in good shape.
Amazing. It is so nice to hear that you're getting some good weather in Ireland because I know it hasn't been the best of summers. Although, as Donal and I often discuss, he lives in like a magical pocket of South Dublin where it really doesn't seem to rain as much as the rest of the country. So he's very blessed.
Yeah, it's funny because I've got a guy in the office here who only came for the summer, and he's going back to the US to work with us over there. But he he was we were only talking about that just now. He said, I think it's rained literally once or twice in the past 2 months. And it's so funny. People just, I don't know. I think people like to focus on what they want to focus on. And if you want to focus on the rain, that's cool with me. I like to focus on the sun.
Yeah, and I mean that in itself is a really interesting values-based perspective and kind of performance tactic. Maybe we can loop back around to that. But
Yeah,
before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd love to give our everyone who's here today a chance just to get to know you a little bit better. Would you be able to share a little bit about your background and what you're up to today?
sure, no problem. So, yeah, hi everyone. I'm born and bred from Dublin. And I've got one sister, two loving parents. I now have a wife, a son, two dogs. Yeah, so it's all go at the moment. But I suppose, yeah, but a bit about my background. My parents were both really, really hard workers. My mum's a teacher, and my dad actually worked with I suppose, with the revenue commissioners actually. And look, just really hard-working guys who just kept the head down. Really instilled a real focus on education and, hard work and just, I suppose, being good, being as good a person as you can be. And I think, I've tried my best to, I suppose, live to that. And I think I try to bring that forward into everything I bring today. So, I went to school in an Irish-speaking secondary school. So I'm fluent in Irish. I'm very proud of that. I then went to college in UCD, which yeah, I did a course there in economics and finance. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I actually kind of thought that I might want to do French and history because those were my favorite subjects. But my parents rightly suggested to me at the time, look, listen, if you don't want to work as a teacher, or an archivist, then maybe you should think about doing something that can make you a few quid. So my sister had done a degree in commerce, so she said, "Listen, come in and do that." And I kind of said, "Okay, I won't do that." But I kind of said, "Look, what's the hardest thing? Like, where are my worst subjects?" At the time, it was kind of maths and economics, and I kind of said, "Okay, why don't I do an undergrad in economics?" So I did economics and finance, which really tested me and challenged me an awful lot because it was the areas that I knew I would learn the most because they were the areas I was worst at. So I did that. And yeah, then I suppose I came out of college in 2008, which was probably one of the worst times to come out of college because obviously we had the crash in the US and global financial crash really. And so I suppose at that time there were no roles going for financial services really. My sister was working at KPMG at the time. She said, "Listen, come into KPMG, do your 3 years, and do your exams and get out." So I did that. Subsequently, proceeded to fail my exams, for a range of different reasons we'll get into, but eventually got them. But I suppose that in itself, there's a good few lessons there that I learned, and I can touch on them later. But yeah, then I knew that I didn't want to stay in Dublin. Or not that I didn't want to stay in Dublin, but I didn't want to stay working in auditing, which is what I was doing in KPMG. I knew I always wanted to get into kind of like mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, into real business, because I was working in financial services and audit, and we were working on, quite intangible things like insurance and aircraft leasing, where you're not really, okay, they are selling products and services, but it's not the same as a business that literally sells widgets. So I knew I always want to get into business. So I spent a bit of time in London, interviewing for bulge bracket investment banks. While I was there, I got introduced to someone in Dublin who needed someone like me to come and join their organization. So I joined. There was a small boutique kind of M&A advisory firm, which I joined, and I worked with them for about a year. I think the kind of the M&A advisory work kind of dried up because they during the year because of I suppose market conditions. It was at a time in which there was the sovereign debt crisis. So we're talking about 2012, 2013 here. So I think the yields on corporate or sorry on sovereign bonds for Ireland, Spain, Portugal, I think they were through the roof. And so there was a real risk that the pig countries that they're the pigs countries that they were very affectionately known at the time would bring down the EU. So it looked a very difficult time. So I suppose I was happy to have worked with that firm. I learned an awful lot from them. But and it also led me to my next opportunity, which was a US family office that I signed up to work for from 2014, and I stayed there until 2019. Had a phenomenal experience. We can touch on later that in that, Annika, if you like. And then I suppose I suppose I kind of wanted to take a break, would you believe? And I actually wanted to go travel the world just for my own kind of purposes for fun. But so I left the US Family Office in 2019, only to find that COVID would lock me down from January 2020 until I don't know 2022 of sometime around then. But look, listen, I think everything happens for a reason. So it's been really positive. I suppose on the whole, albeit a very difficult time for everyone. So yeah, and I suppose what I do now is I work for myself. I've got a really good team around me now. I can touch on what I do maybe in a bit later, but I suppose that's really the background, and I suppose yeah, sorry. So yeah, what I do today, because I think yeah, that was part of the question. We do four distinct things. So the first is we provide corporate finance advisory, so very much focused on providing advice to SMEs that generate between say 5 and 25 million of revenues and are profitable. We help them either grow their business via acquisition, or we help them get their business ready for sale and represent them through an entire sale process. Our second business we provide, and so sorry, that one is called Vico Advisory. Our second business is called Sorrento Recruitment, and that is an executive search business in which we assist SMEs that are, and like these are niche technology and services focused SMEs that are looking to grow and looking to fill, I suppose, really mission critical roles with the best talent possible. And also we also help with I suppose them improving how they operate within their teams as well. So we don't just find good quality people. We stay with our clients and work with them post hire. Then the third business is called Flywheel Momentum. That's I suppose our coaching and mentoring business, in which we bring C-suite individuals and SMEs, of SMEs that are generating in that kind of same 5 to 25 million in revenues, together on a monthly basis, in which we solve problems together. It's a really powerful peer learning experience. That I have to say I'm very grateful to be able to facilitate, and I really enjoy it. And then the final part of our business is called Kalini Hill Capital. That's our investment arm, in which we are looking to acquire businesses, especially those that they're niche technology and services SMEs, where either we're looking to back a founder to go on a journey, or we're looking to acquire a business where there isn't any succession plan and the founders are looking for an exit. So yeah, so that's what I do now. Never a dull day. I love what I do. There are always challenges, and there are times when I'm pulling my hair out, but it's great. And yeah, I wouldn't be doing anything different.
Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting journey you've been on. It's the first time I'd heard you say that you chose economics specifically because it was your worst subject, which I think is fascinating. That's it's not a common way of thinking, I would propose, right? Normally I think we're kind of taught at that age to like follow our strengths. And so how cool that you did basically the exact opposite and demonstrated like so much of a growth mindset where you knew you could learn, and that there was actually so much, like there was more of an opportunity to learn in the areas that you felt that weren't as strong in. I think that's really interesting. And then
Yeah,
this, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say I think if you were to ask my dad, he would always say, yeah, Donal, he's always taken the hard way, the hard road to get to what he wants to do. Like I also did a master of accounting. I forgot to mention this. I did a master of accounting in Smurfit Business School, which is like one of the top 100 in the world. Like so, it's a tough school to get to, to succeed in. And I'd never done any accounting before I did that, and I never did it for leaving cert. I never did it for our undergrad had very, very little amounts of accounting in it. So like I just feel, yeah, it's definitely been a thread within my career is to challenge myself. And I think that that obviously comes from maybe the upbringing that I had from my mom, just, in particular, who instilled such a thirst for knowledge within me and my sister, and just because she was a teacher. And maybe my dad from his perspective, he was a big sportsman back in the day and played everything and to a good degree, but always instilled this kind of concept of just challenge yourself, just see what you can do, like can you be better tomorrow, at whatever it is that you're doing. So I think maybe that had to do with it.
Yeah. So the next question I had for you was around what values you feel have sort of shaped that journey for you. And I feel like you just started to answer that already with some of the lessons that came down from your parents. So if I was to paraphrase, it sounds like the value of learning was really clear that came through from your mother, the pursuit of learning, the love of learning. And then from your father, there was this value of like really reaching out and grabbing challenge, looking for challenge, valuing challenge itself, I suppose. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I think hard work is certainly the number one value that I think has been instilled within me. Like my parents, they were doing, two and three jobs all the time to make it work. We had students every summer, and then also we took them again in the winter. It's funny because I think back to those years, and I remember myself and my sister getting our sleeping bags, going into our parents' bedroom in June and coming out in September.
Mhm.
And just that hard work ethic, that just make things work, find a way. The second thing I think then would be kind of the importance of family and friends. I think that's certainly something that we always have such a positive upbringing, and such good fun, and I think that I'd like to thank my folks for that. They really, make sure that even though there was such an emphasis on education and hard work, they always made things fun and really instill the love of, I suppose, and an importance of having good, quality people in terms of, friends around you, but also family. And then, yeah, education, but it's the third one. But then I think, look, above all else, above all of those others, honesty, integrity, definitely were the main, I suppose, values that we live by. Like I remember a number of instances in which, like I've definitely been pulled up by my parents for maybe straying from those, from that value, when I was growing up and really being told off, you know. So I think that's something that I personally valued probably, the highest, because if you can't trust someone, I think it's very difficult to have a relationship with them. So, that's certainly something that I think is paramount to people's success.
Yeah. So hard work, fun and enjoyment, integrity, education or learning, and then this value of people or relationships. Yeah, very
Yeah, I
cool.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about who you are today in this moment in time, do you have a sort of set of guiding values? Maybe it's those values exactly, or is there anything that you kind of add in to the values that you operate with personally and professionally today?
Yeah, I had to have a think about that because it's funny. Like obviously we have values within our organization, and we really do live them, but I think there are personal values as well that might slightly differ. So I really enjoyed actually putting a bit of thought into this. So I think one of the key values personally that I have is that I really do try and show up to every interaction that I'm having. So whether that's, it could be meeting someone for coffee, it could be going to a meeting in an office, it could be something as so small as just passing someone by when I'm walking down the pier. Because every interaction counts in my view. Because you just never know what's going through someone else. You don't never know what someone else is dealing with at that moment. And I think always showing up and trying to be, my authentic self. While, trying to bring a sense of positivity to every interaction if possible, and it usually is possible with me, which is good. But I think, yeah, like being my authentic self while I'm showing up is something that I really do try and look, sometimes I don't manage to achieve it, and sometimes I fail, but that's okay. And at least I acknowledge it, and I try and do better the next time. Like I remember recently I was at my mum's house actually for a family event, and the aunt of one of my nephews, so on the other side of the family, if that makes sense, she was in our house, and I just asked her, "How are you?" I always love asking that question because and I genuinely mean it. Because it's quite often asked in a very nonchalant way these days, and in which people don't actually care to know the answer as much. But whenever anyone hears me ask them, "How are you?" I'm dying to hear the answer. And I'm not, and this, the aunt of my nephew on the other side of the family, she said, she just kind of, she let her guard down, she said, yeah, like I'm feeling rough here. It's been a tough time now. And then she just checked herself straight away and said, "Oh, but I shouldn't say that to you. Sorry. I should say, yeah, everything's fine, and I'm doing great." And I said, "No, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear the brutal truth. And I want to hear whatever you're comfortable to say to me, And I just feel there's a lot, yeah, societal pressures nowadays that force us to be someone else that we don't want to be, or that we feel uncomfortable being. And I think that's something that I really try and stay clear of. I try and just be myself. Whether I'm feeling bad or feeling sad or sorry or happy or whatever it might be. You'll always get the brutal truth. So that's a key one, personal value that I like to bring. Other things, keep trying new things, keep open to opportunity. Yeah, I think certainly something that I think Americans generally are much better than the Irish at, and they're very, very open-minded with regards to the art of the possible. Whereas I'm not sure Irish people are, maybe indicatively are as good at doing. And so I really try and bring that to every interaction as well, is trying to think about a solution to a problem. Um, this is one of our company. This next one is one of our company values as well, but it's definitely something that I try and live to personally as well. Is this concept of failing fast and often? I know it's quite easily said these days because it's almost quite popular for people to say that, especially in these types of settings. But it's something that I genuinely do and have been doing for, I'd say, a decade now. So I do try and like, I'm not saying I have to fail at something every day, but I'm just saying I do honestly try and try new things in order to push myself to the limits of what I can do, what I can achieve, and if I fail along the way, that's okay. I'll have learned something from that lesson and take it forward. So I think those are the three things. It's really show up and be my authentic self. Keep trying new things slash I suppose be open to opportunity, and yeah, fail fast and often, and learn from those experiences.
Yeah, and I really do feel that you live those. We've known each other for a few years now, and I feel like I definitely have myself even seen many examples of you living those, which is really cool to see. As you're right, because a lot of it's very easy to throw all, I would say, to throw all three of those values around, but they're hard ones to live. So yeah, props to you there for, I think, for like really doing the extra work to make them tangible and in your life. Yeah, very cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that, Annika. Yeah, it's not easy, as you know.
Yeah.
And look, I fail frequently at it, but Yeah, you just gotta wake up in the morning and just get out of bed and do your best, right?
Mhm. So when you think about your organizational values, and actually I'll hit pause there for a moment because I just wanted to acknowledge something that I find really fascinating about you and inspiring is that you have such you have an ability to think on a really large scale, more so than most people I've encountered in my life, and certainly more so than my usual default. And what I mean by that is that you're obviously an entrepreneur, but you don't have your sights set on setting up and establishing one successful business. From the moment I met you, you've talked about multiple businesses and the way they all work together, and a big picture view of business, and yet you're able to stay very connected to like the people and the day to day of it all, which I think is really cool. And so we had someone just join us recently, so you missed the introduction, but Donal's actually running 4 different businesses today and has plans to grow that. And so when you think about organizational organizational values, I'm curious to know, do you have a set of organizational values that you apply to all your businesses, or do you see that there's some variation in values across those businesses?
Yeah, good question. And look, yeah, no, I appreciate that the context you provided to the guys there. Um, I think, look, from my perspective, the reason why I'm doing this is the key, really. And for me, like, I'm inspired by guys like the Guinness family, for example, who over the course of I don't know how many years created so much employment, but also fed and literally, provided shelter literally to their employees. And for me, like, there's nothing more honorable or noble than to be able to do that. And so from my perspective, it's that type of an organization, and you don't come across too many organizations like that these days, where the focus is very much on, well, how can we find really good quality people, but also how can we treat them with respect that they deserve, and also to give them the opportunities that they need and to support them in the manners in which they need support, um, on a long-term basis. And that's really what I'm trying to achieve here in the pursuit of our business. And so, like, it's, this is a long-term game for me. And like, I'm only 37 at the moment. So my head, there's another 35 plus years ahead. So, an awful lot can be achieved over a long, timeline like that when you take a long-term view and not focus on short-term only, goals or objectives. So but to answer your question, I suppose with regards to the values within the organization, yeah, like we definitely have a core set of values that, like within the business, the 4 businesses that we have right now, we certainly try and live by as best we can. And those are, as I said, fail fast, fail often. Our second one is around, challenging reality. That's certainly something I feel very strongly about because, reality it's never, or sorry, it's not always the easiest thing to deal with, and not being able to deal with reality, I think, is the first step towards mediocrity and also failure, but as in ultimate failure if you can't face reality and deal with it. So the next one then for us is to be resilient. I've had a good few setbacks over my lifetime. Nothing on others, in fairness, but enough to I suppose to find it hard to deal with. And I suppose I've learned enough from that. So place a significant amount of value on resilience. Learning continuously, that won't come to that won't come as a surprise to you, I don't think. So that, I really look to work with, people who are voracious readers, of things, and it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care. Yeah, as long as you're learning something about something every day, that's good enough for me. Being passionate, that's another core value of our businesses at the moment. Annika, you'll know me well enough to I think say that passion is something I like to bring to everything, every interaction that I have, and that's at home or in the office as well. Um, Embracing change is another core value that we have in our organization, because business is always changing. And to be honest with you, I love change. A lot of people don't like it, but I've learned to thrive within it. I kind of, I've been involved, and we can touch on that as well, Anik, if you like. Been involved in an awful lot of different types of businesses over the years. Quite often, at a time in those businesses, when they're undergoing significant change, and I just enjoy that frenetic kind of chaos that exists within change. The next value that we have is be compliant. Obviously, look, I've learned an awful lot around, I suppose, what can happen, if you're non-compliant with certain things, and that's certainly something that I've learned to ensure. We acknowledge the importance of that, and how paramount that is to the success of an organization. Then the final two are think and act globally. Because again, it's very easy just to focus on purely where you're based, and to not lift your head above the parapet, and be open to opportunities on a global basis. It's a flat, the world is flat from my perspective, because of technology, because of transport. The ability to talk to people here who might be based in different countries is a phenomenal technological advance, right? And it provides us with so much opportunity. And the final one is, for us, is to celebrate success. So look, we don't. I hate having to do any marketing for what I'm doing. To be honest with you, I'd much rather just keep my head down. But we live in a society now in which, undoubtedly people have to, engage with social media and things like that. But, my point is, like, I have zero ego for being the face of whatever we're doing. And as a result, I'd much rather we just kept our head down and no one knew who we were, to be frank with you. But the key for me is that, the whole reason why we're doing this is to be able to look back at what we've achieved over time, and actually celebrate that. Because if you're not celebrating that, then there's no point in doing it, in my view. And celebration can be, numerous different ways. But, for me, and just to come back to your comment there about thinking big, but also staying true to the people and close to the people that are supporting you on that journey. Like, it's absolutely crucial to have really good relationships with the people that you're working with, and who are supporting you, even if they're not, say, on the team. So I really take the time to get to know the guys and girls that I work with, because they're crucial. And I don't just say that facetiously. I get to know their partners, I get to know their families. We spend a lot of time together that's not in the office, and I think that that's so important towards, building trust, and building really good, solid, long-term relationships. So I hope I've answered the question there. At the final point of the question, actually, I think was, and will these values be the same for all the organizations going forward? And I think that, look, as we start to grow and acquire businesses, undoubtedly those businesses will have their own sets of, values. And I suppose from our perspective, it'll be all about like working with those businesses to understand, well, where are they coming from, and listening to them, and figuring out, what works for them, what works best for them, and us informing them of how we like to think about the world, and seeing if they want to fit into that, and if not, that's okay. I think that, like what we've laid out, I think is relatively broad, and I think that, I think that the vast majority of those values are probably, something that, most businesses will undoubtedly, learn about, and maybe engage with to some degree. But there might be others that don't work for businesses, and that's okay. I think, like, we're not all authoritarian and laying out like a letter of a law at all. It's very much, here's how we like to look at the world, but we're also open to learning new things, and maybe we might even change our values in times to come. So yeah, that's
Very cool. It's a very cool list. I'm sure that there will be some questions from the larger group about some of those when we open up, because they're really interesting. A couple more questions before we move over to that discussion. Is there anything in terms of daily habits or practical actions that you take regularly that you feel help you to stay on track or stay aligned with the values that you've shared with us so far over the course of this conversation?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think there are. I think, if I think of, some of those core values, like hard work for starters, like I do get up early. I'm not one of these people who ascribes to, I have to do 100 press-ups and, 100 sit-ups and all that kind of stuff before I've had my green juice and all that kind of stuff. But I do think though, I really do try and, I suppose, attack the day. Yeah, like Gary Neville, he that's one of the things that he really focuses on. So I really try and, grab it by the neck and really try and get the most out of it. I think that's certainly something that my wife and my family would accuse me of doing, perhaps maybe not always, in a good way. I probably go to bed absolutely wrecked and get up maybe not as fresh as I should, perhaps sometimes. But I really do try and get the most out of every day. I think that's certainly something, that I really do try and do. And maybe I should maybe, cool that down a little bit. But and I suppose that is certainly something that I have learned a lot actually about, is the power of, I suppose, being patient and taking time for myself. But I still think I could do an awful lot more in that regard. So I think that's certainly one habit that I have, be it good or bad. Um, I suppose another one around is, like that value around, I suppose, like being my authentic self. Like that's certainly something that I've worked on just personally myself over the last 5 years, I'd say. And it's a really important one because I suppose, like, it's not something that I would have ever been in tune to prior to that, I think. And it's certainly something that I find myself thinking, subsequently about an interaction that I might have had earlier on in the day, or and I might kind of just check myself to see, like, was I my authentic self there? So I think,
Hmm.
and also when I'm in the midst of an interaction with someone, I will actively, consciously think, wait a minute, am I giving all that I should give to this engagement, or am I giving a true and fair view of what's going on for me right now? And if not, I really do honestly try and change that. And because it's, like, from my perspective, what's the point in having a conversation then? You know? So I think, yeah, those two things in particular would be things that would just stand out to me, of things that I do on a daily basis to uphold the values that I ascribe to.
That's so interesting. So you're actively reflecting both sometimes within the interaction itself, and then afterwards to kind of like check in and think, right, yeah, did I really uphold that?
100%. Yeah. I know that sounds a bit weird, but like part of it is, I'm thinking, am I giving what I should be giving here? As in, am I showing a true self? Like, but also, is the person getting there's a difference between what I think they want to get out of this conversation and what they want to get out of it themselves. But at the very least, if I can maybe try and give them what I think they're looking for, like, I think that can't be a bad way of engaging with someone. So like, I really do honestly think about these things. It's certainly something that it bugs me when I'm in a room and I overhear a conversation, and I might know maybe the person who's talking, and I might know what's going on for them perhaps, and they're saying a completely different thing to that which I know is going on for them, and I think that it's a really unfortunate, state of affairs, that I think, we're we find ourselves in a time in which, and maybe it's got to do with social media, how people, which I really detest and don't really, engage with too much at all. But it's that concept of having to show your true self, and even like at my sea swim this morning, I felt like phenomenal after the swim, and I was just full of life, and someone was just there, and she just said to me, she said, "Joe, you're really living your best life, aren't you?" And I smiled and I said, "Yeah, I am, in fairness. I'm enjoying this moment." But like, just even that phrase, living your best life, I think, it's really a social media type phrase that I think people, it kind of people feel the need to show that face, and I feel sorry for those people that do.
So interesting. I could keep asking about this forever, but I'm gonna pause my questions so that there's time and space for other questions from the group. So at this time, thank you so much, Donal, for all those thoughts.